Good. Let us begin. Today's daf is Masechta Sanhedrin Daf Pei 85. And we're going to start from Pindalit on the base. And we were discussing about hitting your father which a person who hits his father, Layalenu, and causes a wound, will get the Misas Chenek. But there's a pasuk that compares hitting your father to hitting an animal. Maka odom, maka behemi yishalmeno, umaka odom yumas. So that maka odom is referring to hitting your father. So the Gemara says, why did the Torah compare the two? Here the Gemara, Hekei Shalamali, right there, about a third left to the Amid. Hekei Shalamali. Why did the Torah juxtapose the comparison between hitting your father and someone hitting an animal and damaging an animal? So why do we need that for? So the Gemara answers, Ma potter. If someone hits an animal, he's a veterinarian and he's doing a surgery for the animal, so of course he's not held liable. Af make odam l'rafua potter. So also if a person hits his father, and it's the purpose of hitting or giving an injection to your father and causing a wound is for him to be healed, potter, you are not held liable. We're on Pei Dalet Amid Beis, Lewis, about 12 lines, 15 lines, 10 lines from the bottom. The Ibaylahu. Ben Asan, Mahu, there was a question. Ben Asan, Mahu Shiakis Dam La'aviv. Can a son do bloodletting for his father? That's a good question. If he's a bloodletter, he's going to cause his father to bleed. But on the other hand, he's causing his father to have a refuah. Says the Gemara, Rab Matana, Amar Rab Matana says it's permitted, and also everybody's going to say it's permitted. One reason is v'haftal riachal kamoicha. You have to love your neighbor like you love yourself, and therefore, just like a person would have no mind, wouldn't mind himself being healed through bloodletting. So for his father, he should love his father like he loves himself, and there should be no problem with him to heal his father. Rav Dimi Bar Chanina Amar Rav Dimi says simple. Maka Adam Maka Behema. Like we said before, someone who strikes his father, is compared to striking an animal. Ma Maka Behema, just like when you strike an animal, if you're a veterinarian, L'Rafua Potter, if you do it for healing, you are exempt. Af Maka Adam, so if you hit your father, but at the point of giving an injection or causing him to bleed, is L'Rafua, so to bring about healing to him, Potter, you're not exempt from this lav. Nevertheless, so one would think that your son could operate on his father. Says the Gemara, not so fast. Rav loishavek librei lemishkev le silva. Rav did not let his son to remove a splinter. Now you could remove a splinter. You could remove a splinter without taking blood out, but Rav didn't allow his son to remove a splinter. Mar d'berei de Ravina, Mar, the son of Ravina, l'shavek le he did not allow his son lemiftach le kafsa to open up a wart or to let out some of the pus. Now he's not causing his father to bleed, but they didn't allow their children to do that. Why? Because dilma chavel, maybe they're going to cause a wound. V'havale shigigas isar. Then they by mistake, their children are going to do something very wrong by causing their father to bleed. So they didn't allow their children to do these things for them. Says the Gemara, if you're always concerned somebody is going to cause you to bleed, you should never allow anybody to bloodlet for you. You should not just your son, but never allow anybody to bloodlet for you. Because he might cause, anybody to take out a splinter from you or to take out a wart, because he might cause a wound and cause you to bleed, and he'll be over an isser. Now, causing somebody to bleed is also a big avera, but it's only a lav. What's the lav? The Torah tells you that when you don't hit somebody. The Torah tells you in the context that when you're giving somebody malchus, don't hit him a 40th time. You're only supposed to get 39, and don't hit him a 40th time. So that's a lav from hitting somebody. So every person has an issa to cause somebody a wound. Answers the Gemara, Acher shigigas lav. If somebody else does it, so then at worst, if he makes a mistake and causes it to bleed, it's a shogig of a violation of a lav, of a negative commandment. Benoi, but if his son bloodlets, so let's say he makes a mistake and actually takes the splinter out of his father and causes his father to bleed, shigigis chenek. He's doing a mistake that is an avera of chenek, of choking. Had he done it on purpose, he would have gotten the death penalty. So it's much more. It's worse to allow your son to take out the splinter. Now, says the Gemara, that we learned in the Mishnah, Machat shel yad litel boy es hakoitz, that a person is allowed to take a sewing needle, which is a normally you're not allowed to use a sewing needle on Shabbos because it's used for Melecha Shabbos, but you're using it in a heter way. You're not sewing, but you're litel boy es hakoitz. You're allowed to take out a splinter. If a person has a splinter on Shabbos, he's allowed to take a sewing needle and take the splinter out. Why do we allow people to take splinters out on Shabbos? Leichish, let us always be concerned. Dil mechavel, maybe you're going to cause yourself to bleed. If you cause yourself to bleed, that's one of the lamatas malachas. Let's say it's called shoichet. You're not allowed to cause something to bleed. V'hava le'shigas skila, and your mistake could lead to an isser skila. The mistake is a mistake that has the severity of skila. And says the Gemara, Hasam, over there by Shabbos, if you cause yourself to bleed, you didn't do anything, you didn't violate the Shabbos because mikalkel you're doing something destructive. Causing yourself to bleed when you didn't have to is a destructive action, so there is no Isser Shabbos. Says the Gemara, that works well if you align yourself with the opinion mikalkel potter. Doing a destructive thing on Shabbos, you're exempt. El Mandiyama, who said Chayev, that if you do a destructive thing, you are liable. Let's say you knock a wall down. That's a destructive thing, but according to that opinion, you're going to be held liable for violating the Shabbos. So what can you say? Well, why are you, again, back to square one, why are you allowed to take out a splinter from your finger on Shabbos? You might cause it to bleed. And you're going to say, oh, that's doing something destructive, causing yourself to bleed. But there's an opinion that says that if you do something destructive, you are held liable on Shabbos. And says the Gemara, Man shamat le da'ama makalkach v'chabura chayev, who would hold that if someone does a destructive thing by a wound, he will be held liable. That's Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon will hold, we go on Amud Aleph, Rab Shimon will hold, Kol malacha she'eina tzricha legufa pater leha. If you didn't have the intention to do the malacha, if you'd have no benefit from this malacha, then Rab Shimon's going to hold you anyway exempt. So when a person's taking out a splinter and causes himself to bleed, he has no benefit from him bleeding. In fact, it's just totally not what he wants it. So Reb Shimon will hold anything that you did on Shabbos that you didn't want that to happen, you're not held liable. So that's why on Shabbos we allowed you to take out a splinter on Shabbos, even though there's a potential you could cause an accident regarding to have yourself bleed. However, when a person actually Rav did not want let his son take out a splinter for him on even though he was his son, because might be that he's going to cause his father to bleed, and that's the problem. You're causing yourself father to bleed. That's the avera, and therefore he did not allow his son to take out a splinter from his body. Now the Gemara asks the question. Boyumine Rasheshus, they asked the question for Ramsheshus. Ben, a son, Mahu Shiasa Shliach La'aviv Lahakoise Lekalloi. Can a son work for Bezdin? And Bezdin sometimes asks their workers to do dirty work, which means they're the ones that give the malchus, the lashes, or they're the ones that have to curse somebody who's being thrown into cherem. They have to make a curse for that person or shame that person. So the question is, can a son who's working for a bezdin, hi Steve, we're just on Pehei Amud Aleph. The Gemara is asking a quick question, a new sugya. What happens? A son, can he work for a bezdin? Can he be hired by bezdin to give malchus to his father or to curse his father? Because sometimes bezdin causes somebody to go into cherem, and they'll ask the shliach bezdin to curse. So, on one hand, he's doing the job of bezdin. The bezdin's asking him to hit somebody or curse somebody, but it's his father they're asking him to do it. Can the son work for the bezdin? Amalei. So Rav Sheshes asks, what kind of question is that? Any person working for bezdin. What's his heter for work from bezdin? He's doing the dirty work of bezdin, hitting somebody or cursing somebody. Ella, what's the answer? Kvoit shemayim odav. He's working for heaven, the honor of heaven, by working for bezdin. So we allow any person to be the shliach bezdin. Hachiname. So if it's his son also, kvoit shemayim odav, the honor of heaven overrides, and therefore there's no isser for a son to be the one that gives the lashes to his father. Says the Gemara, Meisvei, I'm going to ask that question. Rav Sheshes said that a son could work for bezdin. Says the Gemara, Meisvei, I'm going to ask you a question. Ma mi shemutz. The Brisa says, Ma mi shemitzuva lahakoisei mitzvah shloi lahakoisei. Brisa says that for a person, anybody, there's a mitzvah. If they work for bezdin, they have to hit somebody. But when they're not working for bezdin, they're commanded shloi lahakoisei, not to hit somebody, because there's no mitzvah. They're not working for bezdin. They're not allowed to hit somebody, or even if they're working for bezdin, they're not allowed to even do it. Give a lash number 40 or because that's not the mitzvah. Only 39. So presumably, somebody who's not commanded to work for bezdin, which is a son. To hit his father, he cannot work for bezdin. So there's certainly a mitzvah when he's not working for bezdin not to hit his father. Or so this brisa seems, if you read it into the brisa, seems to say that a son cannot work for bezdin if the person that he's going to hit is going to be his father. My love. That both scenarios that the Brisa talked about is talking about you're doing the mitzvah with your son, and the first part of the Brisa is talking about a stranger. A stranger is mitzvah lahakaisai, but he cannot overdo it. A son cannot work for bezdin, therefore certainly he's not going to overdo it. Answers the Gemara loy. You're misreading the Brisa. The Brisa is talking about one person. It doesn't matter if it's a son or a stranger. They're working for bezdin. But kan lekasha kam bimkoi mitzvah kam shloi bimkoi mitzvah. The Brisa is talking about if you're working for bezdin and doing the mitzvah or not doing the mitzvah. V'achiktani ma bimkoi mitzvah shemitzuva lahakoisei. When you're doing the mitzvah of hitting somebody, you're commanded. You're commanded mitzvah shloi lahakoisei. Then you're commanded not to hit somebody too much, right? Because if you look at the pasuk that says, how do you know you're not supposed to hit somebody? How do you know you're not allowed to hit your friend? The answer is, it doesn't really say in the Chumash not to hit your friend. What it does say is that if you're giving somebody lashes, don't give him lash number 40. Don't overdo it. But you're in the middle of the mitzvah of doing it, of hitting him. The Torah tells you, don't hit him too much. So if you weren't starting to do a mitzvah, you had no business even starting to hit somebody. Of course, so certainly if you're not commanded to hit somebody, of course there's a mitzvah not to hit somebody. So again, there's no proof from that brisa that would prohibit a son for working for bezdin. Tashma. Now, this brisa seems another challenge to Rav Sheshes. Tashma, come in here. Hayotzir leherig. A guy committed murder, and now he's on his way out to be killed. Right? The bezdin paskin, he's supposed to be killed. Uba benoi, his son came, v'kahu v'kiluloi, and his son came and hit his father and cursed at his father as they're schlepping him out to be executed. Chayev, the son is chayev for doing all these things for his father. Potter. And if a stranger came and hit that person and cursed at him, that person is not liable, didn't do anything wrong. We asked the question, what makes the difference between you or your son? If it's usher, it should be usher for everybody. If it's not usher, it should be permitted for his son also. Rav Chisda says, Rav Chisda said that we're referring to somebody who refuses to go out. And he's not going out. They're supposed to execute him, and he's standing still. So then, So anybody else who's working for Bezdin can, overpower the guy, pin him down and whack him a little bit and then curse at him and bring him out to the execution place. But his son is not allowed to do it. So the way Rav Chisda understood this brisa, is the brisa is an effective way telling you that a son is not allowed to work for Bezdin. Answers the Gemara, Rav Sheshes Moikela, which Amar Sarvin Bud Light says. Rav Sheshes will tell you that the whole brisa is talking about the guy is not refusing to go out to be executed. He's walking normally. So then, but the son, if he curses that person, if his father, he'll be liable, and if somebody else will be not liable. Now the Gemara has to understand what's the difference. If he's listening to Bezdin, why should somebody else be allowed to or not held liable if he curses that person? If somebody else hits that person, then why is he not liable? Answers the Gemara. If somebody hits him, Gavra Katili, he's hitting a dead man. Because the guy is going to be executed in 3 minutes. So if you hit him, you're not going to be held liable. Is that true? Rav Sheshes said, Bisha Yashen V'meis. If a person causes somebody embarrassment while the person was sleeping, and then the person never woke up from his sleep and died, so he never knew that he was embarrassed, Chayiv, he's exempt. You don't say, oh, you embarrassed the dead person. So same thing over here. If a guy is going to be executed in 2-3 minutes, if you hit him, you should be held liable. So how do you square off that the Brisa says you're potter? Answers the Gemara, here we're talking about, you didn't hit him too hard. You hit him a little bit, you tapped him a little bit, which is, not a hit that doesn't cause him pain of worth a penny. So that's why you're not held liable. Spread the Gemara, you can't hit anybody, tap him on the shoulder, face, and not be held liable. Rabbi said, let's say he hit somebody, and the pain didn't cause him a penny's worth of damage. So you don't pay because there's no money damage. Loika, nevertheless, you still get malchus. Again, what's the malchus? The Torah says, Lo Yosef, don't hit somebody. So how could you say if the guy hit this person who's being executed, and he hits him, how are you going to say that you're potter when even if you hit him something that's not worth a shavpruta, you should at minimum get malchus? And says Gemara, you're right. My potter, what does potter mean? The comma potter mimamin, you don't have to pay money, but you're going to be chayiv malchus. So when the Brisa says that if his son does it, he's going to be chayiv to pay money, michlal the b'noi chayiv b'mammon, his son is going to be obligated to pay money. But you're talking about somebody who he didn't do any monetary damages. El bedina, he must be the son is chayiv for a punishment because he hit his father. Achanami bedina. So when somebody else hits him, he should also be chayiv because he hit a strange person. Answers the Gemara. So the Gemara comes up with the reason. Why is somebody else who's hitting and cursing this guy that's being taken out to execution is exempt from doing this? He didn't do it in Aveira. Why? Because the pasuk says, a president in your nation, don't curse him. So what's the issue to curse somebody? When a person is a from Jew. But if he's already a convicted felon, that he's already being executed, there's no issue to curse him. Okay, that explains why you're allowed to curse him. How do you know you're allowed to hit somebody being taken out to be executed? Answers the Gemara, the Makshina haklola. Somehow there's a comparison, a juxtaposition that whatever you're allowed to curse, whoever you're allowed to curse, you're allowed to hit also. Okay, so if that's the point, so that's why if a stranger came and cursed and hit the guy, he's exempt. Says the Gemara, if that's true, B'noi Nami, the son is hitting a father or cursing at his father, but his father is not ba'amcha. He's a convicted felon. So why would there be an issa for his son to curse at his father? Answers the Gemara, that here we're talking about that the father did tshuva as he's being taken out to be executed. That's why the son is not allowed to curse or hit his father. So back square one. If he's doing tshuva as he's being taken out to be executed, then why is somebody else allowed to curse him and hit him. Amar Rab Mori ba'amcha b'mekuyim sheba'amcha. For cursing, you're allowed to curse that person, even if he did tshuva, because he's not going to stay in your nation. Because since he's a convicted felon, a convicted murderer, even if he's doing tshuva on his way to the execution, but still, he's a dead man, and therefore you're allowed to curse him. So, if so, then why should the son be not allowed to curse that person if it happens to be his father? He should also be potter. And says the Gemara, we go to Amid Beis, achamisa. By your father, it doesn't matter if your father is a dead person or a live person. We know that you're not allowed to curse your father even after he dies, and therefore, you are going to be held liable if it's your father if you curse him after you die. And even if you hit him at that point, normally if you hit your father and cause him to bleed after he's dead, you're not chayiv. But here, because when you hit him after he's dead, really dead, there's no chabura, there's no bloodletting. But here he's still a live person, so potentially you can hit him when he's alive. So if you hit him when he's alive, and even though he's going to be executed in 3 minutes, but he's going to bleed, and therefore the son will be held liable if he cursed his father who's being taken out to be executed, and also if he hits his father at that point, as opposed to somebody else, he will not be held liable. So bottom line, let's review. Rav Sheshes said that a son is permitted to work for Bezdin. And the challenges to Rav Sheshes was refuted. My havala, but what's the halacha? We paskin that a son cannot be a messenger or work for Bezdin if the person that he's going to give lashes to or curses is his father. Chutz, if you accept mimesis, if your father was somebody that incited other people to do avodah zarah, then we will allow the son to be the shliach Bezdin to give the father skila, etc., or curse him. Because the Torah says, Lo sachma v'lo sechas olav. Here, the Torah says, don't have Reni Rachmanis, have no pity on him, don't cover up for him. So there, we will allow the son to work to be a shliach of the Bezdin, but on a normal situation, if the person that he's going to give malchus to is his father, will not allow the son to be working for Bezdin. So that's the Mishnah. Hamaka ava v'ima, if you hit your father or mother, ein echayev achiyasu behen chabura, until you make a blood wound. That's why we see cursing is worse. Sometimes cursing is more severe than hitting your father. If you curse your father after he's dead, chayiv, you're held liable. But if you hit your father after he's dead, so then you didn't bloodlet because he's a dead person, right? So then potter, you'll be held, you're not liable. Tana Rabbanim. The rabbis taught. Let's read the pasuk inside. I have it on the screen here. Ki ish imay ish ashikalas of visima. If you curse your father and mother, insult them, mois yumas, you get the death penalty of skila. Of v'imay kilo, you cursed your father and mother. Dam of boy, you get skila. Right? The dam of boy means you get skila. But it says you cursed your father. It says it twice in the pasuk. So the Gemara is going to talk about that. Tan Rabbanan of v'imay kilo la'achar misa. The Torah ended off twice telling you curse your father, that even if you curse him after he's dead, you get skila. Sheyachol, I would have thought, the Torah says you're liable if you hit your father, and you're liable if you curse at your father. Just like hitting your father only applies when he's alive. But after he's dead, there's no issur to hit your father. So also I'll be thinking cursing, it was only if your father's alive, but not when he's dead. Void kal v'chayim. I'll make even a kal v'chayim. Ma'amaka she'asa boy shaloi ba'amcha kaba'amcha lechia boy lachamisa. When you hit your father, the Torah made. It doesn't matter if your father is a rasha or not, but after he's dead, there's no problem of hitting your father if he was a rasha or not. Mikalel cursing shaloi boy also boy shaloi ba'amcha kaba'amcha. The Torah did not make somebody who is not a rasha like a tzaddik. In other words, if your father is a rasha, according to this understanding of the Brisa, a person would be allowed to curse at his father, right? Ein din, but so therefore Kalel is always more lighter than hitting your father. And if hitting doesn't apply after Misa, so then Ein Edin Shleichia Bailach Misa. So then I'll certainly say that cursing at your father would not apply after he's dead. Talmud Loima, that's why we have the pasuk of V'imai Kilel. The Torah repeats it. So Torah tells you that you cursed your father and mother, even if you cursed them after Misa, you're chayav. Says the Gemara, Hanicha, this would all make sense. The Rabbi Yochanan, the Miyatale Kra of V'imai, that has this pasuk of V'imai as extra. Ela Rabbi Yoshia Ma'ikal Meima, because Rabbi Yoshia uses the pasuk of Aviv Imay to teach you something else. This end of the pasuk of Aviv Imay Kilel teaches you that it's not, you don't have to curse both your father and mother. It's either or. Where's this Rabbi Yonasan? The Tanya, we learned to the Brayse, ish ish ma tamad loy ish ish la rabbis bas tumtim ba. It doesn't matter a tumtim androgynes, the daughter, or tumtim and androgynes. No son or offspring from a parent is allowed to curse their parent. Ashikala esav v'simay ainli ela avivima. I would only think that if you curse both of them, how do you know if the Torah means to say that if you curse either one, you're liable? Talmud Loima, the Torah repeats itself. Aviv v'imay kilel, aviv kilel, imay kilel. Divrei Rabbi Yoshi. So aviv v'imay kilel teaches you that it's not. You don't have to curse them both. You could curse either one. Rabbi Yonasan, mashma shneim ke'echad, mashma echad ve'echad b'fnei atzmai. Ad shefar lechakosav yachtav. According to Rabbi Yonasan, you don't need that. If certainly it means either or, unless the Torah wrote yachtav, you have to do both. I would say it always means either or. So according to Rabbi Yashia, I need aviv v'imay kilel to teach you another limud. So then, how do I know that it applies? That cursing applies after your father and mother die? For the Gemara, Nafkale Mevkala Avavima Moisumas. I know it from another pasuk, Mevkala Avavima Moisimas. Another pasuk tells you that you're not allowed to, that you're not allowed to curse your parents after they die. The Imdach. What is the other man? The Amar Rabbi Yonasan. Ahuma Bailed Rav is Bas Tumtim Adroignes. The Tepik Ish Ish. Why did Rabbi Yonasan learn from Ish Ish that no matter what offspring comes out of your parents, if you're a daughter or Tumtim Androignes, you're not allowed to curse your parents? The Torah Kilshem Bnei Adam sometimes writes Ish Ish. So the Torah, like people speak, but it doesn't mean to marba any other offspring. So the Torah repeated to teach you that any offspring of your parent, you're not allowed to curse. So now we have a source. Another minute and we'll stop by the Mishnah. So we have a source that you're not allowed to curse your parents after they die. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah already told you that cursing is worse than hitting, but some ways hitting is worse than cursing. That we learned that whoever that by hitting, you're now allowed to hit your father who's a rasha, just like if he was a tzaddik. But cursing, you're allowed to curse your father who is a rasha. So cursing is less severe than hitting. Answers the Gemara, Kusavar, this our Mishnah holds, Makshinin Hakol Laklala. We juxtapose hitting to cursing. If you're not allowed to hit your father who's a rasha, you're also not allowed to curse your father as a rasha. Is that a machlekes tanoim? Is a machlekes tanoim? Do we juxtapose hitting to cursing? The Tanichad, the one brisa says, Kusi ata mitzuva al akosoi, viata mitzuva al kilolosoi. A kusi, which is a Samaritan, we're not sure if they became Gerim. They were Sancheriv, got rid of the 10 tribes and brought in these Samaritans to take over and live in Israel. So kusi ata mitzuva al akosoi, you're commanded not to and hitting him. Viata mitzuva al kilolosoi, but you're not commanded not to curse him. V'tanya idach. You're not commanded. You don't have. There's nothing wrong with cursing them or hitting them. Savrua the kuliyama kusim gerim is saying everybody holds kusim are rightful gerim. My love hokami palgi. The marsova makshina kala la klala. Marsova loy makshina klala klala. That one brisa, the brisa holds that the second brisa holds that you're allowed to curse them and you're not commanded. You're allowed to curse them. You're allowed to hit them because we compare hakah to haklala. And the first brisa who says no, you're not allowed to hit him. You're not allowed to hit them, but you're allowed to curse them because he holds you don't juxtapose hakah haklala. And says the Gemara loy, not so. The kuliyama loy makshina klala. We don't compare. Haklola, klola. If you hold they're real Jews, then you're not allowed to hit them and not allowed to curse them. They hold that they're goyim, so therefore you're not allowed to hit them, but you're allowed to curse them. Just like you're allowed to curse a goy. If that would make sense, even if you hold the brisa finishes off that you're allowed to hit them, but you're not allowed to curse them, and his ox is like a Jew. That means you're not allowed to do damage to him, or we treat his ox as if a Jew damaged him. It's tam and muad and etc. But if he's a ger, if the first brisa holds he's not really a Jew, he's a goy, then why is his ox like a Jew? From here we see that we're arguing that the machlokes is, do you compare cursing to hitting? Bottom line, there's a machlokes tanoim whether if your father is a Rasha, do we compare that just like you're not allowed to hit him, you're also not allowed to curse him? If you compare, then you're not allowed to do both. If you don't compare, that means you're not allowed to hit him, but you are allowed to curse him. So we will end off by the Mishnah on Pehei Amid Beis. Okay.